Hi there. Okay, we're going to talk about the while loop in MATLAB and a little bit about why you might use it, but I have to make a bit of a contrived example, so bear with me. We're going to write a quick script. Normal way we'll start it out, and we'll start out with a couple of initializations. We'll call y. We'll start y at 0, we'll start t at 0. We're going to make a variable called index and start that at 1, which we'll see why in a second. Then I'm going to create a while loop while y is still less than 10, end. Alright, so I need to do a few things in the while loop, and basically what we're going to do, we're going to say y equals sine of t plus 0.3 times t. So it's kind of this sine wave that's wiggling up into space. We don't know exactly when it's going to be above 10. So that way we'll be able to exercise a while loop for the reason that's there. Alright, but we need to do a few things to capture. First, we'll make this object yp, which is it's going to be a vector, and at index, whatever index is, we'll store y. And a little bit below here, we'll say index equals index plus 1. So this is changing size every time. This is was one of the neat things about MATLAB, is that the variable is actually changing size. We're adding an index to the end and kind of storing that solution. We also need to update time, so we'll say t equals 0, t plus t equals t plus 0.01, and that'll be good. And then we need to plot this, so I'm going to plot yp by its index and turn on the grid, and I want to pause just for a small amount of time, 0.0001 seconds. Alright, now I'm going to run this once. The first time, actually I need to save it, don't I? I'm going to call this gav while 1. Okay, first time I run it, it's, there we go. It's going up, and if this works the way it's supposed to work, which it ought to, this should get all the way up to 10, and once it gets to 10, then we should be out of the while loop and stop. You can see right here, MATLAB is busy. Okay, there we got to 10. And it took us, I don't know, 3,200 or so different computations to do that. So you could think of this like the way you might run a simulation that you don't know how long it's going to go for. You just want it to meet certain criteria. So here, the criteria was that it gets to 10, and we got there. But it might be that you have a situation where you know that it takes you, I don't know, a minute per iteration, you want to spend 10,000 minutes, you know, something like that. So I wanted to show you one other thing while we're here, and we'll just say if index, actually we'll do it like this, if index is greater than, it took us 3,200, so what if we only have enough time to do 2,000 indices, and then we want it to stop? So we can check with our conditional statement, an if statement, and say, hey, if the index is greater than 2,000, then break. And that might be so that you don't have an infinite loop. That might be because you need to check back in with it. It could be for a lot of reasons. So we kind of said, hey, the stopping condition is 10 at the top, and right now we're going to say, but if you get to 2,000 first, then that's your new stopping position. So I'm going to hit run again, and here it's dynamically plotting this variable, and we're kind of watching it take place here. And since nothing's random, we should, as soon as we get to 2,000, we should stop. And sure enough, there we stop. So if that wasn't in place, last thing I promise that I'm going to show you here, if that wasn't in place and maybe this was like 20,000 and this was I don't know, 30 or something. It was, in other words, it was going to take a while, and you didn't want to, you just wanted to get out of it, but you didn't want to maybe lose your work or something like that inside MATLAB. See, it's running right now, and you can't interrupt it unless you do this. You put the cursor in the command window, you hold down Control, and then you press C. And that way you can terminate and get out of possible infinite loop. So that's all I have to show you today. That's a while loop inside MATLAB, and it also showed you the break keyword to get out of loops if you need to. And I showed you a little bit about dynamic variable sizing. The reason it's underlined here, by the way, is because MATLAB says, hey, if we could, it's dynamically being sized, so that makes it run a little slower. So it's going to suggest that you pre-allocate, but we can't pre-allocate here. It's just a suggestion. Anyhow, thanks for watching. See you next time.